Hey everybody, happy Friday. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey Lisa Colovi. Hey Gwen, Bro Cowgirl. Hope you guys are doing well. Guys, make sure you send prayers to Gwen at Bro Cowgirl Homestead, her daughter. She put out a video on this, so I don't mind mentioning it. But her daughter's currently monitoring her horses for the EHV1, which is the virus that's affecting horses all over in an outbreak, so to speak. So send some prayers her way. So far, I guess they seem to be doing okay, but it's very early, so you just want to make sure everybody's doing all right. Hey there, Craig. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Happy Friday, Lisa. I texted you, Lisa Clovey, also, just so you know. Thank you. Let's see, just before we get into it. It's been a day. It's been a good day. It's been a week though, I'll tell you that. Um Commercials. Yeah. Oh, poor Gwen, she's stuck in commercials. I'll wait a minute, let some folks get in then before I get going. You guys will have to let me know when you're in. Okay, thank you, Lisa. I just wanted to make sure you saw, that's all. Probably won't get into it too much today. I'm waiting on Gwen to get in. Okay, so she's in there now. Well, Gwen, while you were watching commercials, I was telling folks to pray for your daughter's horses. So I apologize that you didn't hear that, but I was just saying, it's still early, but we're just send some prayers to your daughter about her horses and keep them safe. But yeah, just, been a week of life. Life keeps lifing, right? And Ryan's phone died. So we had to go in and get him a new phone, and because he uses that for work too. So we had to go do that, and that turned into a very, very long 4.5 hours of just being in the Verizon store. I'm glad things are looking good. I'm so glad they're looking good for you. So yeah, 4.5 hours and 2 stores, because the one store swore the other store could fix it, and you know how that goes down, right? Not the case. Anyway, they got that fixed. Then I couldn't get into any of my apps, Google related or YouTube or stuff like that, and Studio. So went back the next day and finally got it all resolved. That's great. We both ended up getting new phones because we were both having issues, but we just figured they had a good deal. It was time to get it. So, then been doing, the beef bone broth, been cooking all week, which has been really nice because it's very hands off. It's the first time that I'm impressed with my electric roaster. Normally, I'm not so impressed with it. I am more impressed with it now. I did not like doing tomatoes in it. It did not do well, and it ate the finish right off the darn thing. First time using it. And I tried larding it and stuff. Anyway, worked out great for the bone broth. And so I have the second batch of bone broth going now. The first batch is canned, so that's really cool. And good morning, our little homestead 1966. Good to see you. And if you remember, we had 10 turkeys we started with in the spring, and we were raising 4 for friends of ours till they got out of the brooder, and we were going to keep 6. Well, we ended up losing a bunch, and I can't even remember how many, how many we brought over to their house. I think it was 6 total or 5. And so we just said it was not worth keeping the one here because raising one turkey was just crazy. We'd rather them all be raised together. And so our friend was like, yeah, no problem at all. I'll raise them and then you come get them in November. I said, okay, fine. So they were down to 3 turkeys by then. And we were lucky because one of them was ours that survived and they got 2. So out of 10 turkeys, we got 3. I will never buy hybrids again. I will stick with heritage breed. So we'll see, but that was all we could get at that time. I think what I'll do next time is order them and hope for the best. I don't know. Ordering is not always good for us either. Hey, about 6 acres. Hey, Troy Sutton. Good to see you guys. Happy Friday. So we picked up our turkey hen this morning, got her butchered, and we'll put her in the freezer, probably prepare the turkey for Christmas versus Thanksgiving because we already were prepared for Thanksgiving. And Gwen says, I use mine for broth making more than anything else. Yeah, I can see why. I can see why. So let's see. So the second batch is going. That'll go till tomorrow. I didn't feel it was ready today. It was only 24 hours, and I feel like it needs to concentrate down more. So then we went and got pig feed, which was good today. And real quick, I'm not going to talk about it, and I won't acknowledge comments. I just want you to know thank you very much if you say something. Hey, Robert Nelson, good to see you. Lucy, if you're familiar with our channel, Lucy is our lavender Orpington chicken, and she passed tonight. That's all I'm going to say because I will start crying. So tonight, what I thought we could talk about is critical thinking skills. And I know all of you guys have them, but the reason why I think it's important is it's super important because right now we're in an age of information coming at us 24/7. Thank you. We're in an age of things coming at us 24/7. So much. And sorry guys. Oh, reality. Thank you. She was more like a pet. All I had to do was call her name and she would come flying off the back part of the property. But I digress. Thank you for all the well wishes and hugs. Normally I can deal with all this stuff, but this was fresh and she was a favorite. So let me dry my eyes so we can get back to business here. But what you see is what you get with me, so it's reality. I'm going to blow my nose. Hold on. You don't need to hear that. Okay, sorry about that. So anyway, hi Annette, good to see you. Thanks for being here. So anyway, what I think of all the things like 24/7, we're bombarded, right, with a ton of things. And I don't know about you, but this is some of the things that I You got that right, Gwen. That's why I muted it. It would have sounded terrible, but I couldn't breathe. So anyway, we're bombarded with so much stuff. And when I look at things on the internet, these are some of my reactions. Hey, that's a good idea. Wow, that's a really good idea. Not sure if that's true, but it sounds plausible. Or maybe that can't possibly be true. Or is it? Right? Some of those things. Do you guys ever feel like that when you're watching stuff, right? Because you just don't know what is truth and what is not. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you an example. Pumpkins are not a dewormer. Sorry to break your heart, but pumpkins are not a dewormer. And I can't tell you how many people I see posting how amazing pumpkins are as a dewormer. And because the seeds have curcumin or whatever the heck you call it, because it has that compound, it's not. And look at this on a larger level, right? Let's talk about the fact that how many pumpkins do you need to feed if it was a dewormer for it to be effective? So let's take, a rancher who's got 100 head of cattle, right? How many pumpkins would they be feeding their cows, right, to keep them from getting worms? Let's be real. I mean, this is not possible. So it but it's easy to get sucked into that stuff, and I'm all about natural, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that natural things don't work. I'm just saying you need to use your critical thinking skills and research and analyze and all that stuff and sit there and think about and sort through what is real and what's not true. And I'm not saying that somebody's putting it up maliciously, but sometimes they hear it, they think it's true. I heard it, I thought it was true. Had I not had a pig with worms after he ate a ton of donated pumpkins, I might have thought the same thing. There's sometimes you just have to choose something and really look into it, right? And that's how we learn. So Gwen said the EHV1 virus info has been so overwhelming on social media, I've had to stop reading. See, it's funny because I didn't hear about it until you told me about it. Of course, I wasn't watching the news, I'll be honest. And I don't follow a lot of horse people, so I wasn't seeing it. And I don't follow news channels on Instagram because I don't want to see that stuff. You know what I mean? So it was interesting. You taught me about it because I didn't even know about it. But, that's the thing. Like you just and regardless of what you believe, because I'm not trying to debate what people think. Again, I'm saying this from my point of view, but you have to look at things from a whole. Thank you, Juana. I agree. I mean, I think it's things you really have to decipher the information. I'm trying to think of another good example. Hi, Wendy, Hardneck Farms. Thanks for being here. Right. Fact is fact. And so some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, like with critical thinking, right? Because we don't even think about it. A lot of us with critical thinking skills, like those of us here, we just like dig into it and we start thinking about why this isn't true or how this could be true and all that kind of stuff. So, when you're looking at all this information coming at you on the internet, like you have to do like an analysis, break down the information into like the components and understand how things are structured and relate to one another. You have to evaluate the credibility of the information, the strength of the arguments, and the validity of the evidence. Think about think about I can't remember what they're called. Fallacy is one of them. There's all those different arguments where they're like false arguments. So you really want to look for what is a true argument versus like a false argument. And I'm drawing a blank on that, and I apologize. My head was better before we started. Um Also interpretation, right? You're explaining, you're making sense of the data, the information, and the ideas. Maybe it'll work for you, but maybe it won't work for somebody else. You know, so I'll give you an example. I don't have goats. You know that. Gwen has goats. Gwen's had goats for years. She knows a lot about goats. About 6 acres has goats. And about 6 acres, I bring this up because they had posted on Instagram this wonderful uh, goat shed that they built, and they had hooked the water bucket to the wall, and it was a great setup. It was a wonderful setup for goats. And I loved it. And I have to tell you, I looked at it and all I could think of was, I really would love to have a bucket attached to a wall, right? Because I have waters in tires, but it's because of the nature of my animals. Pigs can't get their heads into a bucket like that, right? They need to be able to get, they're shorter, they need to get up over the top, and that's why the tire waterer works for them. So a good example might be somebody could do a reel and they would put a bucket hanging as high as Nick and Juana put their goat bucket water, right? And I'd be like, first thing, and they say, oh, this is great for pigs. I'd be like, no, it's not. And I just want to be clear, Juana and Nick did not say that. I'm just using it as an example. But that's the thing, like, sometimes you can see things right away and say, oh, that would never work. Or I might put up a fence and Annette at the Cow Emporium might say, you might want to rethink that because that fence is not going to hold back a cow. I don't know if that helps make the point. I think you also have to be aware of your own biases and assumptions, right? Because that monitors our own thinking process, which is huge. And I think all of these things are this relate to homesteading. Why? Because you need to have critical thinking skills to homestead. You have to be able to ask questions, consider the source, seek multiple perspectives, and find what works for you, right? You also have to reflect, taking what you've learned and incorporating it into your knowledge as you move forward. For example, anytime there's something wrong with one of the pigs, I always try to go through things, right? And Gwen was saying, I started reading just info from vets, but even that gets bad. It does, right? Because I have the Merck manual that I will look at. And I will look at that and then I will come up with deduce the worst case scenario, and maybe the pig is just not having a good day, right? I deduce the worst case scenario and then I run it by my mentor, and my mentor is like, maybe the pig's having a bad day. Just keep an eye on the pig, right? So it's easy to glean information that is wrong from the right information too, if that makes sense. Tell me like what your experience is with stuff like that. What do you think? I'm trying to keep my hair out of my face. Even though it's wet, it's still getting in my face. Oh, drives me crazy. I need a haircut bad. But yeah, tell me about like what is your experience with, having to sort through information? I'd love to know. I'm just going to go back and check at the chat now that I can see it again after my eyes dried up. We have horse events canceled here just in case. Oh, I bet. Happy crocheting scrubbies, Wendy at Hardneck Farms. You don't have to answer. I know what it's like to have to put down a crochet hook. I got a hair stuck in my glasses. I am like a hot mess tonight. There it is. No wonder why it was driving me nuts. I love my new glasses because they're really sturdy, but on a side note, they pull my hair and they are making me crazy, but I'm going to deal through it. We always hear about how pine needles turn the soil acidic, but same thing, it would take a lot. Yes, and it would also have to be green needles, not brown ones. So it would take a ton of green needles, not dead needles. The other thing is we always heard that too, and I used to believe that. I agree. The other thing is everybody talks about making pine needle soda, right? All these different pine needle tinctures and all that stuff. If I didn't dig deep, we'd be dead. Ponderosa pine trees are toxic. We can't make any of those products with the majority of the pine trees that we have here. They are toxic to cows and can kill cows. They can also cause abortions in cows, and the same for pigs. So crazy, but how many pine needles causes it? Is it a ton or is it 5 needles? I don't know. I did have somebody who grew up in a Wyoming ranch who now is ranching in here, who said that they've done studies on it and it is not a lot of needles that could kill something. So interesting. Oh, Mr. Yogi Hollow's in the chat. Richard Feynman, I'm going to say Feynman, famously valued questions over answers with the belief that I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questions. Question. That's a good point. I'm going to read that again without screwing it up. Highly valued questions over answers with the belief that I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. I like that. Gwen says, from what I've learned from our County Master Gardener website is that green pine straw does, brown dry ones don't. Correct. But they don't stay green long enough. They die. They stay brown forever. I can tell you, like, composting pine needles is a decade-long event. I mean, we even put them in a wood chipper and they didn't even shred. They came out whole. Just because someone is famous doesn't mean they are an expert. So many gardeners look back years later and wish they have done so much differently. Exactly. Because we're all learning as we go. And exactly, just because someone's famous doesn't mean it's the right way, the only way, or the expert way. And that's the thing. That's the thing. And I think that's where a lot of it is, considering where it comes from, consider the source. I see reels on Instagram all the time that are like, you got plenty of time, you need to plant this now. And I'll give you a wild example. Or I'll give you a not so wild example. For those of you who know, I left our broccoli in a lot longer than I normally do. And so next week, when the temperatures nosedive, I'll be curious to see how they do. Now, we haven't had broccoli on them since the beginning of November. Hold on. Mr. Yogi Hollow Farm, you got to lower that, please. Thank you. I was getting the echo in the background. So anyway, I left the broccoli in. Usually I pull it out like once it gets frosted and looks awful, because I'm like, you've given to me all year long. I don't want anything more from you. But this time I said, I'm going to leave it because I want to see what it looks like. Brussels sprouts too. Now, Brussels sprouts, I know that they will continue to grow throughout the winter, is what they say, even in cold temperature, but very, very slowly. So we have some that were not mature, and I left the plants in to see what happens. Am I worried about a harvest? No. I bring this up because people say, now's the time to plant your broccoli. And it's like December, wherever they are. And I'm like, that's great. You too can do this. No, I can't. I will not be able to get it germinating. If it was already planted, perhaps it would make it. But I don't know many plants that would make like a minus 30-degree temperature. So I don't. Yeah. And that's like, oh yeah, how does it grow in -40? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Gwen says, Northern gardeners say planting this when doesn't work for Texas gardeners. Oh, absolutely. But I think there's a way you can put that, I guess is what I'm saying. Like instead of saying you need to do this now, you too can do this. No, it's you too can do this in my climate. Right? You too can do this in a similar climate to me versus you all can do this. I'm like, no, I can't. I don't answer. I just go, uh-huh, yeah, whatever. Goats are so tricky, about 6 acres said. There are so many studies with cows and sheep, not really goats. While they are similar, they are not the same. I spent the first year freaking out about all the little things. I can totally relate to that. They are. They are. That's why it's so important to have a mentor and like get good books and stuff so you can get good information of what to look for and all that. And it's great that you have like a FAMACHA score that you can go by and all that. But I have a thing with pigs too, because number one, we didn't have any pig vets here. And so we had to do surgical castrations ourselves. And we did every year until this year, till we finally found someone newer who was here. And thankfully, they're young. I hope they're going to be here a while. When we had an issue with a pig, we had to throw things at it and hope it would help the animal versus harm it, which is, I mean, obviously from an educated standpoint and getting feedback from other people, not just willy nilly, but still it's flying blind. And then you get all this experience like you have, Juana, where you freaked out about the little things, but now you know what to look for, warning signs. Um, the other thing is with pigs, a lot of it is swine related, but it's often specific to commercial hogs, which I know are the same as kuni pigs from the standpoint of a pig is a pig, but they're a lot smaller. Like when you get the medications, they're made for a lot larger animals sometimes, and it's hard to get it to break down to something that's a lot smaller. Um, Gwen says, and vets know very little about goats. It's pitiful. Yeah, I mean, vets know very little about nutrition in general. At least when it's been my experience with vets, excuse me, with dogs. I mean, we had Yogi, and Yogi was an autoimmune. Every weird thing that could come up, excuse me, every weird thing that could come up. And I always tried to approach it from a nutrition standpoint. And, could we eliminate things in the diet to make it better? And it worked a lot better. The raw diet kept that dog alive for years. He blossomed and never went back to the vet except for his annuals once he was on the raw diet for a few years. It was unbelievable, night and day. Before that, he was at the vet constantly with issues. So it's just crazy. I was just looking. Agreed, Gwen. North Texas is such a different world. Yeah, for sure. All right. So then I was just looking at my other information here. Let me just look that up real quick here. I think sometimes it's really cool when somebody points out, like, say, a reel on social media and it's thought provoking and you think, sounds kind of crazy, but it could be plausible. I'll start researching all that stuff to see if it's something that I want to look into. I'll just start looking. And, you know, sometimes you get down a whole different rabbit hole, but the reality of it is you can find the answers. And it's really hard because a lot of things online, it's just, you have to go to reputable websites, and what used to be considered a reputable website was, government websites. And Obviously, you have to filter through them and filter through some other things too. I remember there was a guy there's a guy that got in trouble for I probably shouldn't go there because I believe he couldn't take the pressure, and I think I'll skip that one. Trying to think of other good examples though. Info needle in a haystack. Thank you for saving me. Yes, I'm gonna go with that. It's an info needle in a haystack. It really is, and sometimes you get so far down, it's really hard to find those things. I know for me, like a lot of things that I Googled about gardening when I had to relearn everything that we knew to be successful, I would literally research and search, excuse me, research when should I plant this in my zone. If I followed that, I still wouldn't be successful, I find, you know. Yet I think the people who are a mile south of me as the wind blows and a mile east of me as the wind blows have different experiences. So it's crazy. Oh, Juana, don't even get me started. AI has made it worse too. AI is bad. There is so much AI out there that it's hard to even tell what's AI and what's not. That's what's scary. At least years ago, you could look through things. You felt like you could at least sort through information to form an opinion. Now it's just like, man, it's just so much, so much. So, what are some of your go tos for doing your own research, right? Because we hear it all the time. People on YouTube videos. I've said it. I know other people have said it. This is what we do. Do your own research, right? Because we're just sharing what we do, a lot of us, and we're not claiming to be veterinarians or claiming to be experts, right? A lot of us have that disclaimer. So, how do you research and sort through things? I know for me, I have books. I bought story guides. I think story guides are really helpful for animals. Um, Old timers, people who have years of experience in raising the animals that I raise. Annette said the old Reader Digest how-to books. That's cool. Excuse me. That's so cool. I love it. I have books too. I bought a few years ago before we had our first litters. I asked around and said for people who have um Kuni pigs, I said I really want to learn more about them and what I'm looking for. Um More information specific to them, and I found this teeny little book, teeny, probably about that thick. Probably about that thick. That's it. Nothing. Highly recommended book. I read it cover to cover. I read the flowering section 65 times of what to look for. I talked to my mentor, which is Halbert, Rebecca, and Josh over at Halbert Farm, because they've been doing this since longer than I have. And they've been breeding for years. So I said, I'm going to ask them. And, that's how Rebecca actually became one of my mentors, was because I was going to pick up Sherman and I had messaged her and said, you're not going to believe this. I found a boar and we're going to get him. And she started offering me tips on how to transport them long distance because he was little. So it's not like you could just, it was cold, right? So we couldn't just throw him in a crate in the back of the truck because it was still too cold for that and his age. So it was really cool. she started giving me information. And so she's had experiences where pigs have gotten very carsick on the way, and we didn't have that. But he sure did go to the bathroom a lot in the crate. We had to keep stopping and emptying the crate because it was really stinky. But let's see here. Juana says Nick goes through reference books and he soaks so much information from forums. That's great. That's great. I love reference books. Reference books you just have to have. You just have to have, right? Ooh. My phone vibrated. It scared me. Gwen says university studies are my main go-to with animals and gardening, and books that I have. Foxfire books for all things homesteading. Very cool. Very cool. Guess where we're going tomorrow morning? Take a guess. Y'all know it. Gwen always makes fun of me for it. 9 a.m. We are going to Harvey's. So back over the summer, Harvey's was going to have a rabbit butchering and raising class where you could taste rabbit. That was why I wanted to go. And all the other information, right? Well, it turns out that we were up all night with Eleanor. And see, Gwen said Harvey. She knew it. They had this class and told me about it because I had said I wanted to get a rabbit so I could taste it before I started raising them. Well, of course, we missed that class because Eleanor farrowed and we were up all night with her, and there was no way we could have focused on that the next day. Plus, we were dealing with the runt and everything. So awful that I missed it. I felt bad. But anyway, they're doing one again, but it's not going to be a tasting one or anything like that. It's just going to be a raising meat rabbit one. So I'm going to go down there, and the two of us are going down there, and we're just going to check it out and see if that's something we want to do, and learn more about it and so on. Because we're thinking about as we get older, for us, one of the things that we are learning is, like we want to butcher pigs as long as we can. And obviously, when we butchered our last pig last December, we were supposed to have two. We only had one. And so we butchered that one. And that was quite an undertaking and quite amazing, right? But we also see that raising pigs when we're in our 70s and butchering them might be a struggle. So we're going to do it as long as we can, obviously. Yes, it'll be a year in December. And we only have one package of Italian sausage left. So sad. But we also have two more pigs rising up in the ranks to serve that purpose here on our farm. And so they will be ready next November, December, guaranteed, because we're looking at them now and they're 4 or 5 times the size of Norman. Norman was such a little runt. And then that's what we're hoping is to get into the 2 a year, because their size works perfect for us to be able to do that. Gwen says, woohoo, I get a gold star. You do. Juana says, one of our steps is to look up the opposite view statement theory. Oh, I like that. That's interesting. Wow. I like that. And so what things are you looking for? Are you looking for holes to point in your argument for the things that are not the opposite, but the proponent view? I like that. Trying to think what else while I'm waiting. So yeah, I know that people used to talk about turkeys being so hard to raise, and I'm like, no, they're not. We had good experiences. Well, then we hatched out a bunch, and I had to teach them how to eat and drink, and we found, for the most part, if we could get past the 2-week point, they were out of the dark. It was good, right? Then we got these turkeys this year, And they were beautiful for 2 weeks, and then everything went to heck, and all the things they said to do, vitamin D and the other vitamins and the supplements we were giving them and the baby vitamins and all that stuff, when you give them all that stuff and they still don't get better, was mind-blowing. Mr. Yogi Hollow Farm said, "Good call about 6 acres." Annette says, "I can't watch anyone else work cattle. It usually just baffles me." Yeah, everybody does it different. It's hard. Sawana said, "Yes, like where the contradict studies cited, sometimes you get more information on the history of why that helps." Very cool. That's a great point. I like that. So yeah, it's like there's so much information, and I know all of you teach me things every day, and I try to share things, but we're all learning, and the reality of it is sometimes stuff won't work and you got to try something different. I'm just looking at the chat here. So yeah, so we're going to learn about rabbits tomorrow. And of course, just like before I got the pigs, I bought books to read about them. I read a lot about the Kuni breed, watched a variety of people, and because I did do all that, I'm really glad we have them because I'm very happy with them. I fallen in love with them. They are just all different personalities and funny as heck. And they are perfect for small land and perfect for us to process by ourselves. So that's why I like them. Could we easily raise a couple of feeder hogs every year and have enough pork for probably every other year, to get through? Sure. But we'd have to pay a processor and all that stuff. It's just with our equipment and everything, it just makes perfect sense for us. And especially since, we have 4 of them here on a regular basis because we have the 2 sows and we have the boar, and then we have Norman, who's the companion to the boar. It's just so nice to have animals that overall behave. Grant, we know, has his moments, but he really is our best pig. He really is. Gwen says, I had a house goat, honeysuckle, weather related. Mama had no milk, bottle baby. Then it got hot. She would not drink water. By the time it was time for her to be in the barn, it was 100 degrees. Finally, at 6 months old, I finally got her to drink by holding the bottle nipple in her pan of water in the house. Oh, geez. Honeysuckle. We have had calves like that, Gwen. Such a pain, but not 100 degrees. Yikes. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. And that's another thing. Funny, most baby animals get bottle fed, right? Not pigs. You're not supposed to bottle feed them. You're supposed to pan feed them and teach them that because they can aspirate very easily. And yet I still see people saying bottle feed. Now, don't get me wrong. I never had to have a bottle baby, knock on wood, but the reality of it is like, it's not like somebody posts, say, oh my gosh, we have tried everything. We've tried a pan, we've tried this, we've tried that, we've tried this, we can't get this, and don't come at me because we've tried everything. And this is an eyedropper is the only way we can get this baby to eat. I understand that. But what I'm saying is when you see somebody taking a bottle to a piglet, piglets are not supposed to be bottle fed. They're supposed to be pan fed. And that's why you always see Halbert Farm when they have little ones in the house that they're trying to help and so on. They're usually covered in milk and all that stuff, and they just keep encouraging the pan, right? Putting stuff on their finger and encouraging the animal to eat from the pan. And when they eat from the pan, when they're that little, they get covered in it. And then she ends up bathing, you know? That is why she's so special. I get it, Gwen. I get it. So yeah, so it's been crazy. Um, and of course, I'm not even talking about all the people all the haters and trolls out there. I saw something earlier and I posted it on Instagram, but I know Gwen's not on Instagram and I wanted to share it. I was watching a reel on Instagram. I don't remember who the guy was. I've never watched him before, but he was talking about canned food and how long it lasts, right? Pretty big account. People seem to really like his account. You could tell by the comments. There were a lot of really nice comments and stuff like that. And so this is what made me think of the critical thinking for tonight. So the woman responded to his reel. Imagine if people questioned the food industry as heavily and harshly as they question and judge home canners. And I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Somebody cans something and they put it on the internet, whether it's, I'm going to say right or wrong, but whether it's what you would do or you wouldn't do, people go nuts. They go absolutely nuts. But how many of them question the food industry, right? And when I say food industry, let me be clear. I am not talking about any of y'all here because I know the Cow Emporium and other ranchers who are providing beef do a stellar job. They do. And I wish we had more of them. The food industry is a mess. You know me, you've heard me say it before. One of the things I always say is the people who are approving the recipes are the ones who are lying to us. When's the last time they approved a recipe, right? We talked about that one night and it's been years and years, right? So whatever. So yeah. Grow your own food, question authority, question all that stuff because I don't know what's right and what's wrong anymore. Or I shouldn't say that. I don't know who's lying and who's not anymore. So I'm not here to preach anything except question it all. Because you never know. You never know. Annette said, I told Glenn I wanted to open a grocery store that only sold fresh food. Oh, that would be amazing. And you could do it. You could do it. Yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Wonder what those people do at work. Haha. Think it was 2015. Yeah, I mean, it's like, how many years, and I don't want to get into the whole debate. Okay, I'm not. I'm just using it as an example because I saw it this week. How many years have we heard that, immunizations do not cause autism? And then now suddenly they're saying it does. I think I am of the opinion we were significantly lied to in 2020. I'll leave it at that. I myself was caught up in the frenzy of what was going on in 2020. I admit it. And then it came true in 2022 when I got it and got really sick. But I don't know. I don't want to spew for spewing. So my eyes opened in 2020. I wish they would have opened earlier, I'll admit. But I'm glad they opened. And I'm glad we're doing what we're doing. And I'm glad we're raising all we can and growing all we can. because they lie to us. And you can replace the they with so many people who lie to us or don't want us to be self-sufficient, because he who controls the food supply controls the people. And fear is a huge control strategy. And I fell for it. And I'm embarrassed about that. But I feel like I have made steps to change since then. And one of the things I've always been a proponent of is grow your own food, no matter how, no matter where, no matter how little, no matter how much you can. Grow it. I don't like gardening, but I grow my food and I want it. I want to fill my freezer and not buy stuff from the grocery store. But I do realize not everybody can do that. I get it. But there's always something that we can do to make ourselves less reliant on others when there are shortages. There are many things we can do to take care of our families because we know what's best for our families. No one else knows that but us. I was, Annette. I remember. Oh, it was not good. It was not good. I have noticed a real decline again. Oh, I have got to post this up here. I have noticed a real decline again in people who want to be more self-sufficient around us. It is more of a focus to buy local or only Canadian. I have seen that too in the United States. In fact, I have seen a huge sense of complacency has settled back in again. In fact, I've seen it in 2022 and it's declined, or I'm sorry, complacency has risen since 2022, in my opinion, because we still get looks from people who are like, you do all that? You raise all that? Yeah, yeah, we do. Um, and there's nothing wrong with buying local or buying only Canadian or, in our case, buying local and buying only United States. I get that. But I don't ever want to be in the position of not being able to find what I need. And when I say need, it's not a Gucci bag. Find what I need to eat for my family. 2020, I drove around looking for toilet paper, which was ludicrous in the United States. Toilet paper. Ridiculous. Wendy says, I have to try and grow my own. I get sick eating most of the food at the store. That's hard, Wendy. I'm glad you're growing your own. Sorry, Wendy, you said repeat that. I'm sorry the commercial popped up. Could you give me an idea what I was talking about? Gwen says, if I post pictures of harvest, I nearly always have someone ask if they can buy it. Oh, that's cool, Gwen. Yes, Wendy, the stores are empty. They were empty. They were very empty. And here's the other thing. If you want to put aside the events of 2020, look at, sorry, I got distracted. Okay, so if you put aside 2020 for a minute and the events that happened there, when South Dakota had the blizzard a few years ago, we did not have it. Around us had it. We were like a weird dry pocket. The stores are empty. Again, why? I-90 was closed. I-90 is how the trucks get in and out of South Dakota to distribute and deliver. I-90 was closed for like a week. So even forgetting a pandemic, it's having that stuff on hand is huge. Hey, Heather Milk and Honey Heritage Farm. Good to see you. Wendy said food desert is what they call that, Lisa. Yep, food desert. Absolutely. Quinn says, but I raise for us not to sell, and it seems to offend someone when I say no. I do share our extra with tomato cousin or our daughter. Offend someone when you say no. It's like, hello, it's my garden. Right? I know you share a lot. You guys all share with each other and you share with community and all that, and it's fabulous. But for someone to be offended, like, whatever. It's ridiculous. But yeah, it just, yeah. Anywho, any last thoughts? I'm curious what you guys think. Any other thoughts? Or any questions? Any of that stuff? Heather, we were just talking critical thinking skills because we're getting bombarded with information everywhere we go. Wendy said, my youngest had a truck repoed and she had to get rid of her car. They can't pay bills and they both work 7 days a week. Yep. Yeah, and then, throw the idea of a 50-year mortgage on top of that. I don't know what brainchild thought a 50-year mortgage was going to be the solution, but not happening. People are going to be in debt well into their retirement years. That's just insane. Heather says, I think that it should have taught all to make a pantry and learn how to grow stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I think it taught a lot of people, and some people are still doing it, right? But there's also, I think, a bunch of people who have fallen right back into being complacent again. And that's the sad part. If it can happen once, it can happen again, especially when everybody's complacent, right? Because that's the perfect time. And I'm not trying to be all conspiracy creeper on you or anything like that. It's just, look at the facts. Look at the facts. Make your own decisions, do your research, decide what works best for you. Don't let the powers that be decide what is best for you. More taxes or mortgage companies will take it into new buyers. Yep. That's right. We grew up growing food, fruit, berries, and made our food canned. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. It goes back to that lady, like I said. It goes back to that lady, like I said. Imagine if people question the food industry as heavily and harshly as they question and judge home canners. Like, seriously. I will not for the life of me ever and don't get me wrong, I get the science of approved recipes, and I'm not telling you to be a rebel canner. I'm not telling you anything. You decide that yourself. All I'm saying is when I think about cranberry juice with sugar and water and cranberries in a pot versus cranberries and sugar with boiling water in a jar for juice, it's the same thing to me. Maybe not. Maybe I'm ignorant. Gwen says, watching Amanda check horses that first time and checking mobility and balling, then pull herself together and do what needed done made me a proud mama. Point is, it's okay to cry when things feel. Yeah. Beyond your control, get yourself together and do what needs done. I'm so proud of her. Yeah, I am too. Wendy said, I'm fighting to get rid of property tax in Oklahoma. Legislators wanting to end it. Property tax went up in my county so high, people are losing their properties. That's crazy. That is so crazy. Heather says, I never saw anyone can growing up. Me neither. Me neither, Heather. That's not something you did in New York City. Mm-mm. At that time, there were not farmers markets either. There were roadside stands in upstate New York, but The Union Square Farmers Market that's so trendy in New York City was not there when I was a kid. When I was a young adult, I remember it being there. But yeah, never did my mom can food. They would cook things and freeze them. Like I can tell you, my father would make spaghetti sauce, and he would freeze it in those little white plastic containers. He would also every year he would make squid sauce, and he would cut up the squid and he would make like a spicy tomato sauce that went with it. He would freeze that. It was great. Gwen says my mama canned tomatoes and jelly. That's it. I learned from hubby's granny and on my own. Awesome. Yeah, I had to learn myself too, Heather. So true. So true. All right, guys. Well, I hope tonight was entertaining or thought provoking, or as they say in one of those rap songs, provocative. Thank you, Juana. Thanks, guys. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and also keep Tammy Mountain Grandma in your prayers. She posted that she had lost her mom. So we're hoping to get back to that. But I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for being here. Take care.